Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. That's some great self-control, OP. I definitely would have snapped and gave her a piece of my mind, but I love how that turned out. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Don't be an a-hole to minimum wage workers. My boyfriend and I were at the grocery store the other day, and it was quite busy. We'd grabbed everything we needed and were waiting in line with about 3 or 4 people ahead of us. After a few minutes, this woman comes and gets in line behind us. She's there for no more than 2 minutes before she starts shouting that they need to open another line, don't know how to provide adequate customer service, are incompetent, etc. She's repeating the same thing over and over, and the cashier is visibly uncomfortable. Bear in mind, 4 of the 6 registers are open. The store's just very busy. She goes on this tirade the entire time I'm in line. I would have just ignored her. I used to work in retail, so I'm good at tuning out a-holes. But she kept bumping my ankles with her cart as if to accent her point. When we got up to the register, the cashier noticed that the bag of discount Halloween candy we were trying to buy had already been opened and some was missing. I'll be damned if I don't get the max amount possible of discounted goodness, so my boyfriend runs back to the back to get another bag. At this point, I'm in front of my cart, and the annoying woman behind us is leaning against her cart, which is leaning against mine. When my boyfriend gets back, he politely tries to go around her. She can obviously see him, but just plants herself to where he can't go around. So he goes all the way around to get to the register again. The woman lets out an exasperated sigh over how long we're taking. It's at this point that my boyfriend looks up and realizes how her cart is perched on ours. He proceeds to nonchalantly pull our cart forward, which in turn causes her cart to fly forward and her to fall flat on her dumb face. It took all I had to stifle laughter, and she just stood up all huffy and red-faced. She didn't speak another word. And our second story. Hood rat engineer can build a $1,600 laptop for $300. I work at a relatively small store that sells, among other things, refurbished computers. As sales reps, we get to know all our products pretty well, so we'll be prepared to answer the standard questions like, why is this one more than a new one at Buy-Mart? Because that other one is garbage. Or, what does one of these cost new? A lot more than the other one. Or, what's a quad-core processor? 3 more cores than the one at the other store? I'm not too shy to say that we do good work. We put warranties on them. We sell them for less than what you find them for elsewhere. We even fix them in-store or replace them if they spontaneously combust or something. I dare say I'm somewhat proud of what we do. I think of myself as saving people headaches. Of course, everybody that's worked in retail, from the mighty cashier to the lowly manager, sorry management, just fooling, knows that sometimes people just can't be pleased. I'm sure if everybody were easy to please, there wouldn't be this subreddit. One morning a few months ago, such a person appeared on our sales floor. He was a small fellow wearing one of those poofy coats that keep you incredibly warm, with long, greasy hair and a beard of thin, wiry whiskers. Under each eye were teardrop tattoos. Some kind of script was on his neck, and each knuckle had a letter on it. I never bothered to read any of it because I was more curious as to why he walked in with a plastic trash bag that he placed on the floor in front of the counter. He made his way to the big wooden display of miscellaneous adapters and cables and spent the next few hours sifting through them, putting together an abomination of impedance and connections. The guy actually had a dozen or so adapters plugged into each other. I'll never know why. Once he was satisfied, he made his way to the counter and paid. This was the first time I saw him. It was upon our second encounter that I first heard his voice. It was a slow morning, and we were all just kind of looking for things to do around the store and making small talk when he waltzed in again and began looking at laptops. All the sales reps looked at each other, and we mentally drew straws before I greeted him and asked him if I could help him with anything, to which he replied in a small voice, "Yeah, why's all your stuff so overpriced?" All the other sales reps, there were 3 of us in all actuality, immediately turned to look at me and see what my response would be, as the music of Johnny Cash, I think it was I'm Going to Jackson, softly played across the room. I took a breath, smiled, and asked him which computer he thought was overpriced. All of them. He pointed at the most expensive one in the store. It was a business class number, new for that year, 2013, Core i7, 8GB RAM, probably about $900. Retail on it was $1,600. This computer wouldn't be on our shelf longer than another week. I can build that for $300. I looked around the room, all the reps were still watching. My response was, "Sir, I'm afraid you can't even get those components for $300. At that, he looked me dead in the eye with a straight face, told me that he was an engineer and insisted he could. I had nothing left to say, other than that if he could do that, he should, and that he could make a lot of money doing so. He walked around a bit more, shook his head, then left, towing his trash bag behind him. Some weeks later, I'm closing up the shop, we close at 9, when I hear thud, thud, thud on our front door. I go to investigate what's going on, and guess who's standing right there trying to get in? That's right, it's our engineer friend. 15 minutes he begs me to let him in, and after 15 minutes of explaining to him that we can't, I tell him that I have to close the store now and that if he doesn't leave, I'll be forced to call the police. I walk away from him and do my job, and after a few more minutes of him staring longingly into the window, he gets bored and leaves. I send the boss an email about it and move on. Roughly 3 nights later, I go to the company Christmas party, and the manager, who had to close the store that night, shows up. First thing out of his mouth is, "Hey, guess who I had to call the police on tonight because he was banging on our door after 9 again and wouldn't leave when I asked him to." We shared a hearty chuckle and drank some eggnog, and that was the last we've ever seen or heard from him. We can only assume he went into business for himself, making computers. And our next story. Wholesome, my latest vest story. I'm a 40-year-old man, and I'm mobility challenged. I can walk in short stints, such as to and from my car, and stand for short stints, usually not more than cooking food in a microwave. I use either the manual wheelchair I have or the electronic scooters the store has. I wear a high-visibility reflective safety vest while out, so it's easier for me to be seen. Some local supermarkets use the same relative design with their own employees' vests, which is why I'm constantly being pegged as an employee. The event. I was at Winco again, just doing a simple restock, nothing big or fancy, just a standard topping off. Shortly after I got inside, a lovely woman in a flannel jacket waves me over in the universal "come here" gesture. I already figured she thinks I work there, despite operating a mobility aid. I wheel over and ask what's wrong. She explains to me that she's totally lost in regards to how to find product X. While I don't use product X, I'm at least familiar with the layout of the store, since Winco uses relatively the same floor plan in every state that has one. In other words, if I go to one in, say, Chico, California, then to one in Seattle, the floor plan is pretty identical. I tell her where she can find product X and offer, as I've done with others, to take her directly to it. She says that'd be wonderful. Always willing to help a person in need, I drive on over to where product X is, I point it out, and she picks it up and gives it a once over. She asks my opinion on it. I inform her that, honestly, I wasn't someone that used it, but I do hear good things about it. She puts it in her cart. Next, she asks me 3 or 4 questions relating to other products and what I thought of them. I answer them all politely and honestly. She thanks me and excuses herself. I go on with my shopping. Not long after at all, one of the managers I know quite well approaches me. She smiles under her mask. "OP, are you doing something silly like helping people out again?" she coyly asks. I tell her I did and restated to her that it's just how I am. She tells me Miss Flannel Coat stopped by the customer service desk to leave me a kudos card. I chuckle and sigh out of pleasant exacerbation. She tells me at this rate they just might have to hire me legitimately and pay me to keep being kind and helpful. I thank her and Miss Flannel for her compliments. The manager says she was going to hang my kudos card on the wall anyway, just to brighten people's day. That brightened mine just a little more. And our last story. Mom and Pop wrote the HOA so they would have a monopoly. So about 6 years ago, my wife and I bought a townhouse in a small town. A condition of the purchase was to join the HOA. Sure, whatever, it's a small town surrounded by farmland, cheap dues, not a big issue. Living there for about a year, no big issue. We have our first son. 2 years later, we're expecting our second son. We decide to switch places with my single sister who's living in my childhood home. 5 bedrooms versus our 2. Easy decision since we'll have a newborn and a 2-year-old. So we make the switch 2 months later. I get a call from Claire, husband, and Dorothy who live across the street from our townhouse. Claire built all the townhouses in the 80s and still owns 4 of them, which he rents. His buddy also owns and rents 4, one of which we share a wall with. Claire informs me that it's against HOA rules to rent units unless you owned 4. Conveniently, the HOA was written by Claire. I told him I know and that I'm letting my sister live there rent-free, which I am. He says that's highly irregular and insists I come to the HOA meeting. I'm like, sure, not breaking any rules. At the HOA meeting, he demands proof that I'm not receiving payment from my sister. I have to inform him that I can't prove something that doesn't exist and that the burden of proof lies on him. I also may have told him in front of all of his neighbors that I thought I moved to Exburg, not Soviet Russia. He wanted to put it to a vote. I said, go ahead and have the vote, but if it didn't go in my favor, I wasn't going to abide by it. The vote went my way. The only dissenting votes were him and his buddy trying to protect their monopoly. He insists I go to every meeting still to defend my case, so I sent him a letter. If you have any new evidence that I'm receiving rental income from the unit, please send a copy to my attorney and we'll attend the following meeting with my response. Otherwise, I'm not going to attend every month to defend myself against the same frivolous accusations month after month. By the way, my attorney charges XXX dollars an hour, and I will be seeking to recover expenses for any time wasted defending libelous, slanderous claims or unfounded fines. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.